UFC Noche, Riyadh season, which is weird, but still, from the Sphere, Las Vegas, Nevada. In the main event, Sean O'Malley defends his bantamweight championship against someone who has long danced around this opportunity, Merab Dvalishvili. There's another title fight on this card and some interesting pieces on the undercard. So let's go through it with our main card breakdown. First, it is Ronaldo Rodriguez taking on Odi Osborne in the flyweight division. Rodriguez is 25 years old, standing at 5'7", born in Veracruz, Mexico, training out of Prime Combat Academy. He is 16-2 for his career with 7 wins by knockout and another 5 by submission. Also one other little DQ win in there for you. Also, 2 losses by decision. His last win coming against Dennis Bondar at UFC Fight Night in February of 2024. He won by second round submission. That was his UFC debut and is also putting him on a 6-fight win streak with 4 finishes. His last loss came on Dana White's Contender Series, and he has been a pro since 2017. For Osborne, he is 32 years old, born in Kingston, Jamaica. At 5'7", he has a 73-inch reach, training at Black Cobra MMA. 12-7 for his career with 1 no contest, 5 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission, 2 knockout losses, and 4 submission losses. His last fight was a submission loss against Rafael Filho at the Ultimate Fight Night in March of this year. That was a first-round submission loss. He has now lost 3 of his last 4 and has been finished in all of them. He's 4-5 in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, finished in all of his losses, and has finished 2 of his 4 wins. He has been a pro since 2015. I think Rodriguez is a bit of an interesting prospect at 125 pounds, and I think he continues that progression here. It just kind of feels done for Osborne. All of those finishes in a row, and now you go up against someone who 4 finishes in his last 6 bouts. So I am going Rodriguez in this fight to get the win. Then we have Daniel Zellhuber taking on Esteban Ribovics. In the lightweight division, Zellhuber is 25 years old, born in Mexico City. At 6'1", he trains at Extreme Couture with a record of 15-1, with 7 wins by knockout, 3 by submission, and 1 decision loss. His last bout was at the Ultimate Fight Night card in February, where he picked up a unanimous decision win over Francisco Prado. It is a 3-fight win streak, all 3 by decision. He had a loss in his UFC debut, making him now 3-1 since joining the promotion in 2022. He got that contract by winning on Dana White's Contender Series in September of 2021, which was the fight that followed his last stoppage win in May of 2021 in Lux Fighting League. He had stoppage wins in 9 of his first 11 fights and has been a pro since 2016. He takes on Ribovics, who is 28 years old, born in Argentina. At 5'10", he trains at Killcliff FC. 13-1 for the career, 7 wins by knockout, another 5 by submission, his lone loss coming by way of decision. His last fight only lasted 37 seconds, and he won by knockout, beating Terrence McKinney at the Ultimate Fight Night card. That's back-to-back wins after his first career loss in his UFC debut at UFC 285. He had another finish, is another finish after a decision win, being his first. That came at UFC 290. He won on Dana White's Contender Series in 1:30 back in August 2022 and has been a pro since 2015. This is another one where it's a bit of an intriguing one, but I feel like there is really something here with Ribovics, to a point. Like, I don't think, well, future champion. But I do think that, given the explosive nature of a lot of his wins, he has kind of eased it back a little bit, but is still winning by decision. That shows a lot of maturity. I do think Zellhuber is on a pretty good run here right now, but I do think Ribovics ends up getting the win. I talked about this fight earlier. That one, absolutely. Fight of the night possibility there, Deeds. 100%. When you look at a couple of guys who both have experience with finishes, both on some winning streaks, again, back-to-back wins for one, 3-fight win streak for the other, I think a really, really high potential for fight of the night, 100% on that one. This one could be as well. You have Brian Ortega taking on Diego Lopez in the featherweight division. Ortega, 33 years old, born in Los Angeles, California. He has, at 5'8", he has a 69-inch reach and trains at Gracie University. 16-3 with 1 no contest, 3 wins by knockout, 8 by submission. He's been stopped twice in his career, both by knockout, and lost 1 decision. He is coming off of a submission win over Yair Rodriguez at the Ultimate Fight Night card in February. It ended a 2-fight losing streak, and he had lost 3 of his last 4. But as we mentioned earlier in the week, those losses, Rodriguez, former title challenger, Volkanovski, like the second best featherweight in the history of the sport, Max Holloway, very good at punching people in the head. So a very good 3-4 losing run for him. He has wins over Rodriguez, as we mentioned, Korean Zombie, and Frankie Edgar, along with Cub Swanson. His win over Yair Rodriguez was his first stoppage win, though, since 2018, and his first submission win since 2017. He's 8-3 with 1 no contest in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. He's been with the company since 2014. A pro since 2010. He has a first-degree black belt under Rener Gracie. Lopez, 29 years old, 5'11", a 72-inch reach, giving him a 3-inch reach advantage over Ortega. That's going to be big in a second here. Born in Brazil, he resides in Mexico and trains at Lobo Gym MMA. 25-6 is the MMA career, 10 wins by knockout, 12 by submission. He has been stopped twice in his career and lost 4 decisions. His last fight was a decision win over Dan Ige at UFC 303. It's a 4-fight winning streak. The first this fight was the first one that that lasted more than 1:40. He has been tearing through guys on his way up to this point in the featherweight division. The reason, or one of the reasons he lost his last loss, it was his UFC debut against Movsar Evloev, who we have found to be very good, and he took it on 5 days' notice. So you can kind of explain that one away pretty easily. 4-1 in the UFC, been in the promotion since 2023, coming off of a loss in 2021 on Dana White's Contender Series. A pro since 2012, he is also a BJJ black belt. I think that reach is going to be very important for him in this fight. Brian Ortega's stand-up game has improved immensely over the years, but he is still, I view him anyway still, as someone who needs to kind of get down on the ground. I think Lopez, because also a BJJ black belt, and because he has this reach, he has this explosive striking ability, he has this reach advantage, and he is well-versed on the ground. It makes him a very dangerous fighter. Yes, this is the best fighter he has ever fought, no question about it. But knocking out Sadiq Youssef in just over a minute, outpointing Dan Ige, proving that you aren't just a knockout guy, that you are someone who can put 3 rounds together, can put 15 minutes of quality fighting together, and getting that ring time and getting that experience. I think all of that leads to a very good performance here on Saturday night. I think we come out of Saturday, obviously we'll be talking about the 2 title fights, but we're going to be talking about another title fight, and that'll be the one that is up next, I think, for Diego Lopez. I think he puts on a show. I think that we have an opportunity here to, I don't want to say like, oh, the next big star in the UFC. He's 29. We'll see. But we have someone who I think is going to develop into a fan favorite. And so I think he uses that reach advantage that he has to be able to keep this fight standing, and I do think that you'll start to see him get a little bit more comfortable on the feet as it goes on and really start to land some of his power punches. For Ortega to not lose this, which I think you can all kind of see where I'm going with this pick, for Ortega to not lose, he is going to have to be, I think, a little bit more pressure on Diego Lopez, kind of like what John Jones talked about in his fight with Glover Teixeira. I'm sure there's a more recent example than that, but you know what I'm referring to. So he isn't able to use that long reach advantage. Once he can get inside, things start to open up for Ortega a little bit more, and it creates a few opportunities to create the situations where he would have the advantage in. I just think that's going to be tough for him to get into. I think the power of Lopez gets it, and so I think Diego Lopez ends up getting the victory. But this one also, Deeds, this one could also very well be your fight of the night. Co-main event, the first of 2 title fights on this card at the Sphere. First, it's Alexa Grasso taking on Valentina Shevchenko for the Women's Flyweight Championship. Grasso is 31 years old, at 5'5" and a 66 reach advantage. She's born in Guadalajara, Mexico, training at Lobo Gym. 16-3-1 for her career. 4 wins by knockout, 2 by submission. She has been stopped once by submission and has 2 decision losses. That draw came in her last fight against Valentina Shevchenko when they fought to a decision at the UFC Fight Night card on September 16th, 2023. So almost exactly 1 year ago. That helped her retain her title after winning it at UFC 285. She has a 6-fight unbeaten streak, 5-0-1 with 2 submission wins in there. Her losses have come to Carla Esparza, Tatiana Suarez, and Felice Herrig. So some very strong, capable fighters in there. Overall, 8-3-1 in the UFC, and she's been with the company since 2016. Before that, she went 4-0 in Invicta and has been a pro since 2012. Taking on one of the greatest to ever do it, Valentina Shevchenko, 36 years old. 5'5" with a 66.5 reach advantage. Born in the Soviet Union, she trains out of Tiger Muay Thai. 23-4-1 for her career, with 8 wins by knockout, another 7 by submission. She has been stopped twice in her career, once by knockout and once by submission. Again, the last fight, the draw. That means it is now a 2-fight winless streak for Shevchenko after a 9-fight win streak. Her title loss to Grasso came after 7 successful title defenses. She has the most title wins in UFC women's flyweight division history. She has the most consecutive title defenses in UFC women's flyweight division history. She is the 2022 World MMA Women's Fighter of the Year. Her 2 of her 4 losses coming to Amanda Nunes, also lost to Grasso, and a loss to Liz Carmouche as well. 12-3-1 in the UFC. She's been with the company since 2015 and has been a pro since 2003. So it's been a long road for Valentina Shevchenko. These two have fought each other a lot. You get the submission win for Grasso, and then 5 rounds together back a year ago leads us now to this point. I do feel like this is one of those ones where Grasso's time has kind of come, and she has an opportunity to get a win here. The thing that I just can't get out of my head is Valentina Shevchenko, not only a very dangerous fighter, she is also a very smart fighter. And she is someone who I think kind of downloads information a lot and uses that information very, very effectively. Most, like, the scorecards were split for that one. It wasn't we had one dissenting judge and it fucked everything up. You had one for Shevchenko, you had one for Grasso, and you had a tie. And when you looked at the media cards, 11 of them were for Grasso and 11 of them were for Shevchenko. It was as close can get. I just feel like if you give Valentina Shevchenko 35 minutes to figure you out, she's going to figure you out. And so that is why maybe that this is, because a lot of times in MMA, when you have a fighter and they are just on this run and that run stops for whatever reason, it's just done, right? Like we've seen that a ton of times before where it just kind of, they just can't get that fire back for whatever reason. Shevchenko, though, has had to deal with that kind of adversity before. She lost to Grasso and then had a draw with her in their last bout, but also she lost to Amanda Nunes when she was on her come up, and this was like, okay, this is a huge fight. She loses that bout, and then she's able to get that run started again and work her way into being one of the great talents of this era of women's mixed martial arts. I said earlier this week, it is, from a what does she do next standpoint, so much more intriguing if Shevchenko loses, but the more I've been going over this one, the more I just don't think she does. I think Valentina Shevchenko gets the win here at UFC Noche, UFC 306. That brings us to the main event of the evening. For the men's bantamweight championship, Sean O'Malley defends against Merab Dvalishvili. O'Malley is 29 years old, born in Helena, Montana. At 5'11", he trains out of the MMA lab with a 72-inch reach. He is 18-1 with 1 no contest for his career, 12 wins by knockout, 1 submission win, and he has been knocked out once in his career. His last fight was a unanimous decision win over Marlon Vera at UFC 299, the first defense of his bantamweight championship, and he set a record in that bout with the most significant strikes landed in UFC bantamweight title history. His only loss came to Marlon Vera at UFC 252, so he has now taken that loss, not off the record, that it stays there for forever, but he got that, he gets his win back. So that was big for him to do that. Just his third decision win in the UFC. He's undefeated in his last 7, 6-0 with 1 no contest. He has been in the UFC now since 2017. It's wild. He's been in the promotion 7 years now, man. 10-1 in the UFC with 1 no contest, an alumni of Dana White's Contender Series, and a pro since 2015. Dvalishvili, 33 years old, 5'6", born in Georgia. No, not the state, the country. He trains at Serra-Longo Fight Team, 17-4, with 3 wins by knockout, 1 by submission, and 1 submission loss. His last fight, a unanimous decision win against Henry Cejudo at UFC 298. That puts an exclamation mark on a 10-fight win streak that leads him to a title opportunity here tonight. Maybe he would have got there sooner, but 9 of those wins were by decision. We talked earlier in the week about why he didn't get this opportunity earlier, because his boy at Serra-Longo, Aljamain Sterling, was locked in a trilogy with Petr Yan to get the title opportunity. Dvalishvili has wins over Yan, Aldo, Marlon Moraes, Corey Stamen, and John Dodson. He's been with the promotion since 2017. He lost his first 2 fights in the UFC. And he's now 10-2, which follows, actually, the story of his career. He went 1-2 as a pro to start when he started off in 2014 and is now 17-4. So we talk about bouncing back from adversity. This guy bounces back from adversity. This one is about as close as we get in modern MMA to striker versus wrestler. Because it's not as simplistic as it was back if this was UFC 79, where like the striker could only strike and the wrestler could only wrestle. That's not how this is anymore. Dvalishvili is a good striker, and Sean O'Malley is an excellent grappler if it gets down into that level. So it's a very intriguing fight for that reason. I feel like O'Malley's range is going to be, again, very important in this bout. He is the taller fighter by 5 inches. I didn't get Merab's reach, but I can't imagine that it's a whole lot close to 72. And so this is, again, O'Malley, he has that length, he has that power. It's actually very similar to the Lopez strategy against Brian Ortega, where if he can kind of just keep him at range, this is going to be a good fight for him. Merab has to get this fight inside. He has to make this fight look ugly. He has to get the takedowns, and he has to be able to really wear on Sean O'Malley that way. The problem is, I think O'Malley is a skilled enough grappler that when this fight does go to the mat, he is still going to be there, and maybe he doesn't threaten off of his back as much, because I do think that that's something that really has changed in MMA over the last 5-10 years, is that like the amount of guys who you just like, you don't want to go to the ground at all with them because they are so much better off their back than you are in top control. There's like 3 of those guys. O'Malley isn't that dude, but he's going to at least be good enough that he is going to be able to limit the offensive opportunities that Merab would have in this fight. And so I love Merab as a fighter, and I am so interested to see how this fight plays out on Saturday and the interesting chess match, because it does, and this is something I get caught with a lot, it does feel simplistic to just be like, oh, O'Malley's the better stand-up fighter, so that means Merab can't do any stand-up. That's not the case. Merab is a very good stand-up fighter. It's just in this fight, it would behoove him to not be and to take this fight to the ground. But then when he takes the fight to the ground, because that's where he wanted it to be, that doesn't mean O'Malley's fucked either. Both guys are very, very close in the areas where the other has the advantage, that it makes it a very interesting fight. I just feel like that there's a couple more tools in the toolbox for O'Malley to be able to get this done, and I think the power that he has in the hands as well is going to be able to give him the edge. And so I think O'Malley wins this one. I think it is probably a razor close decision, but I think Sean O'Malley ends up getting it done in the main event. That is it for the UFC breakdown.